Welcome back to Inside Bergen. The Bergen County Housing, Health, and Human Services Center is much more than a shelter. Here to talk about the facility and the concept behind it is Clark LaMendola. He's the consultant who worked on the center's plans, and we're glad you can join us today, Clark.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Nice to see you again, Clark. The new center was built around the Housing First model. Could you explain that to us?
Yes, the model is very straightforward. It's based on the premise that if you can place a person in housing first and then provide the wraparound services that are needed to really provide stability for them, that you'll have a much more successful approach to eliminating homelessness than you would if you merely took them into the shelters and warehoused them.
Makes sense.
Now, this actual design, why the Housing First model, why is it so important, what you just explained?
Well, it's the core of everything, Dennis, because if you can provide a platform where the services are brought together and into a kind of a one-stop environment, and you surround them and make that environment a productive environment, one that's filled with hope, as was discussed earlier by Julia, you have a much better chance of making the placement a permanent one. Remember that when they enter this area, our objective is to place them into housing as soon as we can and bring the services with them to where they're living, so that we're creating an environment in which stability, hope, and a desire to become productive again is what's focused on. And that's what makes the difference. Also, there was a change in federal policy that occurred during your administration. We had started the process under your leadership of building the shelter on the site, and federal guidelines were modified to really require us to build a center and build a system that brought the services together.
Sounds like we're on our way to fulfilling our vision. I'd like you to tell us about the previous provisions for the homeless in Bergen County before the 3H Center was even thought about.
Okay, well, at one point, of course, we did have several shelters that were being managed and funded by the center, by the county, excuse me. The most prominent one was, of course, the one at Kansas Street, which has always been designed to be
here it is, that's the old one.
Yes, there it is. It was designed to be a temporary shelter, and there were approximately 40 people staying in the shelter. The principal difference, of course, other than the quality of what we have today, is that there were no services really truly available to them on site. And as a consequence, we would have been inhibited from really performing what needs to be performed in order to move them into housing rapidly. So as a consequence, I think what we saw here with the former shelters were a best effort to try and provide some modicum of care for folks who didn't have any other resource. Now, under the new approach, the objective is to place them into housing, which is really a move towards solution rather than warehousing.
And for so many years, the homeless were just really seemed to be, this is an accepted way of life. So what are really the most important goals of the center in terms of just eliminating the chronic illness, situation of homelessness?
Well, I think the most important change that's happened, Dennis, is a change in objective. Our objective prior to Housing First was to provide shelter. And so shelter was the end. That was it. Now our objective is to place them into housing. And if the theory works, and we've seen evidence that it works very well in cities and suburban communities throughout the United States, we should be able to eliminate chronic homelessness and be able to deal more effectively with what we're facing today, and we're facing it everywhere in the United States, and that is the impact of the economy on people's lives. And so what we have is acute types, acute events that lead to homelessness, loss of job, loss of a stable family. And the center is designed to relate to those types of problems and try to prevent the homelessness from occurring using a combination of federal and state funds.
You know, Clark, one of the things that impressed me is that there are so many services that are offered at the center now. How important is it for the guests to have that one-stop facility?
I think that other than the objective of placing them in housing, the objective of having the services in one place to create that helping environment is almost equal in importance. And I think what's so encouraging here is that the objective of collaboration is being met. This is shared service in capital letters. There's major departments of the county. There's the County Housing Authority. There are the major institutions in the nonprofit community. And there are volunteers who are working collaboratively in that center to deliver the service. Of course, the challenge is, how do you make that collaboration work? And how do you keep all those wheels in motion and people, you know, moving along properly? And that, of course, is Julia's responsibility, and she's doing a great job of it. A masterstroke, I think, was bringing together the Housing Authority with the County of Bergen's Community Development, Human Services, and Health Department, so that what we really have is we have all the departments working collaboratively to create the framework that the nonprofits can come into and work in. So Care Plus, Friendship House, and Comp Care through its PATH program, and Christ Church are now all together in one place doing the job that needs to be done.
There's a lot of services you've mentioned, and there's a lot of different members of the community that are there. One that we talked about is the veterans, actually past veterans, and even maybe some coming right from the Iraq-Afghanistan situation. How are they being? How is the county helping them out there at the One Stop?
Well, the county does have a Department of Veteran Services, and they were among the first who said we have to be there, and I think. It's sometimes lost on folks that we do have and have had for some time an issue in which veterans, because of the problems that they've faced serving our country, come back to homelessness. They come back with problems that need to be resolved: drug abuse, alcoholism, post-traumatic stress syndromes. And so this center is designed to relate to that, and it's the folks from the county department who are coming over using the flexible office space that's been designed for them to use, and they're there at least once a week, I think sometimes twice a week, to meet with veterans and help them get access to the services that veterans are entitled to.